Okay, so our plan for today is to do this in two parts. One is to just review the fact sheet, and Mary and I will each take one and expand upon it to answer some of the questions we already have received from folk. And then we're just going to open it up for
A
questions.
resolution around this policy, a policy toward a person, rather than just a
Did you mute yourself?
straight aye nay of a request.
So I'm wondering if there's a middle path here, which is
Please mute.
It said the board was informed of the action.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So as I was saying, we're first going to. We still need everybody muted. Okay, so we're going to do this in two parts. Mary and I are going to go over this fact sheet and expand upon each of the answers that are here. And then we're just going to throw it open for questions. We have map dash up on our up on our screens, and also the CVA adjudicatory platform if you need to see anything on that. So it'll be a little bit more free flowing than the usual orientation that we do. So let me give it a start. So what is the Vitality Improvement Program? It's a 3-year project, and it focuses on increasing vitality and sustainability of smaller congregations. It's funded by a grant from Lilly. They're the primary funder, but we have contributions from other folks, both financial and in kind, from participating dioceses and churches and FaithX scholarships, and we have a number of partners who are helping us with this that are foregoing portions of their cost as a way to fund this. So we're talking about vitality and sustainability, and people often ask what those are. And the way that we look at it is just simply this: is that sustainability is about having the capacity to continue to exist as a congregation. The vitality is the ability to thrive. So one's about various, one is about the health of your congregation, and the other is about its capacity.
So people wonder who should apply for the Vitality Improvement Program. Any church, this is for small congregations. So any congregation with an ASA of 30 to 70 are welcome to apply. But we do ask that you are relatively healthy, free of major conflicts. We are gifted consultants, but we don't do conflict management and conflict consulting. So we don't want to get into that. But you also have leaders and members who are willing and able to do the work, to apply the learnings for the benefit of the congregation and for your neighbors. So we were originally, we said 30 to 70. Or 30 to 50, and then we expanded it to be a little bit more than that. So we certainly will entertain conversations about smaller than 30 congregations, but there need to be enough people to do the work and have that sustainability factor that Ken just talked about.
All right. So the other question that we get a lot is, what will the VIP project do for my congregation? And so it's a big picture and small picture here. In the big picture, the VIP anticipated outcomes include increasing vitality and sustainability, but also more effective stewardship practices and the capacity to engage adaptive leadership and adaptive planning and adaptive strategies. So in the smaller picture, we hope to see more engagement with neighbors, an increased number of volunteers in the congregation, those willing to serve in leadership roles, and clear answers to the question, why are we here? And would anybody notice if we were gone? Now, back up to stewardship practices for a minute. We're talking that in the in the big picture sense. It's not just money, but we're talking about having all the kinds of resources that you need, and also vitality and sustainability practices that you are implementing. So it's not just about money; it's about everything.
Exactly. So what will you do? What does it mean to participate in this program? So first, it means forming a team, 4 to 6 people, depending on the size of your congregation. Maybe you want 6 to 8 people. We're flexible on that. But forming a team to work with the diocesan team and with the FaithX consultants and congregation members to do a congregation vitality assessment twice, once at the beginning and once toward the end, to analyze your demographic data. We help you do that, and learn more about your neighborhood, to get input so that you can create and then implement a plan for increased vitality. I've had people ask me, like, well, what does that mean we're going to do? It's going to be different for everyone. We don't know what you're going to end up doing, because we'll have to work through all that data with you and see, what are the needs of your congregation and your neighbors.
Okay, and another question we get a lot is, what is the VIP going to cost my congregation or diocese, and why? So, as you will recall, I mentioned earlier that the majority of the cost of this $1.2 million project is underwritten by an $800,000 3-year grant from Trinity Wall Street. But you can tell just between the disparate, the difference between those two numbers, that there's a lot of other funding coming in from other sources. One of those sources of funding is a participation contribution from dioceses and from congregations. We're asking $750 a year towards the cost of the $1.2 million program. That roughly translates into each congregation supporting 0.25% of the grant. It's a little higher for the diocese. We're asking for them to support 2.5% of the grant. So you can see that we're asking everybody to have to demonstrate their commitment, and also kind of increasing the effort that they're putting into it by putting some skin in the game, if you will. We have found the reason that we ask for that kind of contribution, that participation contribution, is we have found in our experience that when we've tried to do these kinds of programs and just give the resources and the consulting away free, people just don't take it as seriously as they do if they have something on the table. So the other thing is that there's a time commitment cost, and that suggested time commitment is 1 to 2 meetings a month, 4 to 6 hours per month. So that's kind of up to you all how that's going to work for you. If you want to do 1 larger meeting a month, then you could do that. If you wanted to do 2, you could do that. You could do 3 very short meetings. So it's really up to your preference on that and what you think will be most effective. Now, we will be working alongside your diocesan the diocesan vitality improvement team to help you work through all of that stuff how to go about getting getting volunteers for the committee, about how many hours you should take and what form. So you're not alone in this. We'll be walking alongside you and your diocesan team, and we're going to be there when you need us. Mary?
And we've also been asked, what if $750 a year is too much for our congregation? So, as Ken said, it's a very small percentage of the entire cost of the program, but it may feel like a lot for a small congregation. So we want to be very flexible about how that plays out. We would first encourage you to look for some extra contributions to cover that. If there's an investment from someone in the congregation who could help, or persons in the congregation, but also that it doesn't have to be paid all at one time. It can be paid quarterly or monthly or weekly, because if you notice, if weekly, it comes out to $15 a week. That would be like 2 drinks at Starbucks, so maybe 3, depending on what you order. So it's not a big investment, but ultimately, if there is the need, we do have some scholarships available. It would be very challenging for us if every single congregation was asking for a scholarship, but we do have some money set aside to assist folks who have that need. So with that,
And I would just also mention that the number or the amount of money that we have put in the scholarship fund ourselves represents 7.5% of the grant. So we've got skin in the game also.
yeah. So that's enough from us. I realized, Ken, that we kind of jumped in. We didn't introduce ourselves. So you may not all know us or know much about FaithX. And so it's worthy for us to take a few moments for that. My name is Mary Francis. I'm one of the senior associate consultants at FaithX. Ken?
Yes. I was just looking at the chat for a question that was asked. So I'm the executive director of FaithX and also the principal consultant. My main interest is in vitality and sustainability of congregations. We actually worked with ECF to develop the single congregation version of the CVA, and did it in a way that we could make it free to every congregation and every denomination in the U.S. So that's where we're from. And we have another person who's not here. His name is Steve Matthews. Unlike Mary and I, he is not ordained, but he's seminary trained and has a real background in community development.
Right. And the work that we do at FaithX is unique from other consultants because we ground the work that we do in the data, which is why we work with demographic programs and demographic information and reports, as well as the CVA, so that we can say, like, okay, this is who you understand yourselves to be. This is who your neighbors are. And how can we take all of that information and understand, who is God calling your congregation to be in this time and this place? So, all right. So opening it up to questions, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or you can put it in the chat. Either way, I think we can start with Christopher's question. Ken, do you want to?
Yes, Christopher's question was about, he says, recognizing that this is a pilot and that there may not be an answer to this yet, is there a plan to bring another cohort of congregations within each diocese into the VIP at the end of year 1 or 2? Had many congregations asked. If we can't commit to this now, will there be another opportunity for leaders to sign on later in the project? So Let me answer this a different way by saying, one is that we are bringing together at least once a year all the dioceses and all the congregations, as a way to develop this, to develop that kind of a cadre of people and a learning community in which people can share. The other thing is like what happens after the end of this project. We're not going to walk away at the end of year 3. We're going to help you transition, and continue to help you as you need it. The other thing that I would say about that is that we're not limiting what you do with those tools. The tools that we use, we're going to train you, train the diocesan team in how to use those, and they can use them with everybody. The idea is they will learn from working with us, with the 5 to 7 congregations from each diocese. And what they learn, they will be able to transfer to the other congregations. So that's the way we're seeing it, because at FaithX, we've never been about creating ourselves a niche as a consultant in a diocese. What we are trying to do always is build capacity. And that means, for us, that means helping the system become sustainable and helping the congregations become sustainable within the system. We are applying for a separate Lilly grant, but that won't be for another year before that would come online. There may be some possibilities in that to bring more in, but also we had almost 30 dioceses send us letters of interest about this program, and so there's a lot of other dioceses with congregations that are trying to get in too. So I hope that answers your question.
Right. So the short answer is seize the day. Right? Like we know that we have this now. We do not expect further funding from Trinity Wall Street. So we will look to continue this model as we learn from it and tweak it moving forward, but it may not be subsidized in the way that it is right now, unless something like Lilly comes along. So the program itself could be available, but it could be much more expensive in the future. So this way that it has been subsidized by Trinity Wall Street Grant and our other partners is unique. We don't know what will happen. So Mary Elliott is asking, what's the plan for each of the 3 years? Well, we know where we're going to start, but as I said, what each congregation ends up doing will be unique. So each congregation will form a team and then do the work for the congregational vitality assessment and understanding the neighborhood insight report, which is the demographic information. And then from there, we don't know where you'll go. So then it'll be the formation of a strategic missional plan, and then the diocesan team and the FaithX team helping you implement that plan, coaching you through it. So that's kind of the unique piece of it. Your meetings, your team meetings, they can be in person or on Zoom. That doesn't make any difference to us. And as Ken said, there's a lot of flexibility in it. We're thinking this is what it will take for you, meeting regularly, once or twice a month, and for that amount of time, but no one's going to be asking you to submit a timesheet. So you'll do what you need to do, and FaithX team and your diocesan team will be working with you to make sure that happens. working with other churches in the diocese is, as Ken said, really encouraged to help others grow capacity and learn from what you're doing.
To look at it just from a slightly different perspective, you could think of year one as the baseline year, where we're trying to figure out where you are now. Year two is developing strategies and implementing them. And then year three is working on how the system will be sustainable in the diocese. And by what we mean by that is we look at sustainability as systemic, as being sustainable within the system. In some areas, that may mean that you have a small congregation that can't survive on its own, but can be vital if it's got some support from the diocese. So there's a decision for the diocese to make about, and the congregation to make about, does the diocese need a presence in that community? And if so, how is the diocese going to fund it?
So the annual gathering that's talked about in the grant for sharing of learnings is right now planned to be online. We did not put money in the budget for travel and accommodations. We may adapt that toward the end of the grant to try and allow for an in-person, but right now the plan is for that to be online. So the next question is about the CVA. You want to take that, Ken?
Sure. I mean, the difference between let me back up and say that Arizona is one of the early adopters of the CVA adjudicatory platform. So you have already been using it, so you have a head up on the others. What is different in this is that we're taking a very systemic approach. And we're going to be, helping the diocese kind of refine its approach to how they work with you, make some decisions that they need to make. So it's a systemic approach. It's a planned approach. We have this was another question I saw just below. We have what we call a missional assessment and strategy development plan. It's kind of a model for going through the process, and it involves two phases. One involves assessment, the other involves strategy development. And in the first phase, you're basically clarifying your vision. You're looking at at your vitality scores for the different parts of your parish life, and see which of those areas you're strongest in. Then looking at the communities and the needs, the challenges and opportunities in the communities. Then looking at how you can leverage your strengths to engage your community, and then to begin to develop the strategies at that point. And we like to call those strategies adaptive strategies, because what we have found is that pretty much nobody knows how church is supposed to work these days. It's been coming for a long time that we're kind of losing the old models, and COVID just broke them all. And so what we have found that the congregations that are doing best coming out of COVID have a clear idea of their vision and mission. They have strong leadership, and they have a willingness to develop adaptive strategies in a way that they can experiment with different ways of doing things. We call that rapid iteration prototyping, which means we try stuff, it works, great. If it sort of works, improve it. If it doesn't work, drop it. and come up with another thing and try it. But you'll see us going back to vision a lot, because the vision is the key part of that. You have to have a clear vision and the willingness to experiment to get through this challenging time.
Right. Debbie has the question, will the development of the parish strategic missional plan involve the entire congregation, or will it be developed by the VIP team? I think it started by the VIP team, but then the congregation has to be on board. You cannot do this in isolation or forget it, right? Because nobody's going to come along for the work if they're not part of the process. So we will definitely have opportunities where we will encourage various forms of listening and conversations to hear, where do people see this church in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years, and why are they here, and what are they excited about? Because while we believe that the data is important, so we have the congregational vitality assessment and we have the demographic information, the neighborhood insight report. Those are, I like to say, those are like 2 legs of a 3-legged stool. The third is relationships, and you can't ignore the relationships. So it's relationships in the parish and it's relationships in the community, right? I'm teaching a cohort about entrepreneurship right now, because starting new projects, starting new plans, starting new churches, that's all about entrepreneurship. The fatal flaw of entrepreneurship is solving a problem that people don't know they have. And a lot of times as the church, we do that. We decide that people need more opportunities to gather, or parents need Bible study while the kids are at confirmation, or, the list goes on. But maybe they don't need Bible study then. They need the time to go run errands while their kids are at confirmation, right? But we didn't ask. So we have to build that. That has to be part of the process, right? So that we enhance those relationships, we form and we build them so that we can learn what others need inside the congregation, outside the congregation. So they have to be part of that piece.
In a way, it's sort of like good preaching. You ask your rector or your assistant or any other clergy who's preaching to you what doing a good sermon is like, and they talk about it as a journey taken twice. You begin the journey, you learn, and then you bring the congregation in to learn with you. You could think of yourself as kind of like trail guides or Sherpas. You're going to get the resources, and you're going to carry them alongside the congregation.
And just to piggyback on that, because Dominic was asking, the strategic plan is developed in year 2. The strategic plan is developed as soon as you're ready to do it. You have to do the CVA, we have to do the demographics, we have to have those relationship pieces. And then once you have all the data, that's the next step, is the plan, right? So it's not like, oh, you have to wait till next year for that. No. But
No.
it takes a little while to do some of those pieces. We're not going to rush them, but we're also not going to set you on a particular time frame.
Yeah.
Ken, do you want to talk about spiritual practices?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's really important in this is every time that you meet, you need to have prayer and Bible study. Believe me, a 2-hour meeting with Bible study and prayer at the very beginning will get more done than a 3-hour meeting without it. So that's part of the spiritual practices, but the other part of it is your congregation will have a unique charism, unique gifts as a congregation, and that's part of what you're trying to find out, which parts of parish life. We look at 10 in the CVA. Which parts of those are strong? Which one of those you need to work on? So it's really you're basically seeing all of parish life as a as a spiritual practice. And you may have different practices, different, that you center in on different parts of life as your spiritual practice. Some congregations, the spiritual practice is all about formation, Christian education and formation. Others is about the worship. Others, it's about outreach and service to the community. One congregation I know says they 3 Sundays a week they have worship services, and then 1 Sunday a week they have service worship. So again, we and your diocesan team will be helping you find those and refine those, but they're already in you.
We certainly hope. Any other questions? Imaginings? Let's see.
If there's a question about when are the consultants involved and what are the specific outcomes of each phase, we have, if you go to our website and
Just faithx.net.
faithx.net. If you go to the website, go to the services menu, and then click on Vitality Improvement Project, you will come to a page that will basically be the source of all of that kind of information that you need, but especially a copy of the grant. You can read through that, and it explains the process. It explains the outcomes we expect from each, and that should be very educational for you in terms of answering that question. Oh, you're welcome. Let me ask you this: what are your hopes from for the Vitality Improvement Project in your congregation? What would feel successful to you if it was an outcome? Anyone?
Go ahead, Dominic.
Well, look, you don't have to sell me on the need for strategic planning and for visioning. I mean, that's critical. And I think everything we've seen about congregational development and success over the last 20, 30 years is hinged on those facts. So I get that. I think the question is, how is this model better or different or superior to other models that might exist? I mean, there are lots of different people who do strategic planning in congregations. There's lots of ways that we can tackle that and dream together as congregational leaders, and implement that plan. So, I mean, I guess my question is, why this and not something else? Why this and not a different way of implementing it? Like, what are the what's your elevator speech on this, right? Like, this is how do I sell the rest of a vestry or bishop's committee or leaders in the congregation on why this is, better than another model and why this is something we should commit to for 3 years?
Well, I think what makes our model unique is that we're grounding your discernment in data. And that doesn't mean that we're taking away from from the intuitive part of your discernment. It's just bringing together the other half of that. What we find that when we bring data to the table, people will take the CVA and notice there's some weaknesses that they didn't realize they had, some strengths they didn't realize they had. But especially when you're talking about the community, grounding in data with the kind of interactive tools that we use does two things. One is that it will help you look into your blind spots and your biases, and believe me, you have them. Every time that we do this with a congregation, we use this model with a congregation, we always have what we call the holy crap moment. when somebody will say, I didn't realize we had 1,000 millennials across the street from the church. Why don't we see them? I didn't realize we had an Asian or Latino population. Why don't we see them? You know, and that's the kind of questions we need to get to. And the thing about implicit biases and blind spots is you can't find them yourself. You know, you need help to look into those, and that's a lot of what this does. And I think the other thing that's unique about this, when we use these tools as a way for you to develop your own understanding of your community, the story of your community, and your place in it, that is also what makes it unique. Because what we have found, there's two things that hold congregations from going out into their community and actually finding out what's on the ground in their community, which is the ultimate end of this, is to prepare you to do that kind of work. And what we find is there's two ways that you can short circuit that process. One is not to give people enough data, and the other is to overwhelm them with data. So, or to give them a lot of data out of context. And so our method actually kind of, helps you find yourself in the story of your, community, in such a way that you can begin to come alongside them, not as people who are going to help fix everything for them, but partners with your community. Does that help, Dominic?
I think so. I think, Mike, I still have questions about what that actual process of developing the plan would look like. That's why I just need to do some more research and find out more information about that particular side of it. Because I understand what you're saying about demographic data. I think the first thing anyone should do is start to pull up U.S. Census data on their community. And, the National Episcopal Church has had tools for studying our congregation and community for more than a decade. So, I think that data is there. I understand that you can look at it in a different and perhaps better way, but I'm just.
There's data that is not available
Okay.
by Googling it, that is part of the information on the report that we share. And what the Episcopal Church used to have on the Know Your Neighborhood site, they aren't offering anymore. It was an abbreviated version of the report that we use, that we created. So I've had folks say that, oh, I can just go on Google that. It's like, no, actually you can't. You can get some of it, but some of it is not available without a paywall. So you're going to have to pay for it. And then do you know what to do with it once you have it? I can say when I was in the parish years ago, I haven't been in the parish for a while, but getting demographic reports was one thing. Understanding what to do with them was a totally different ball game. Debbie, I see you've had your hand raised for a while.
Thank you. As part of this, so there's this, we end up with a strategic plan, we get all this data, lovely. That's exciting and interesting. But is part of your work, I have two questions actually. Is part of your work also talking about what success might look like, or what, it's like working in diversity and equity. You're never really done, but I get that, but what does a successful implementation look like, and is that part of what you would work with congregations about?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why we come back to vision and focus on vision so much, and even help you to see what God is telling you about your vision through the community, because the only way to survive these times and thrive in these times is to be able to have a clear North Star that you're heading towards. And when you engage the congregation with tools like this, and you get really clear on your vision and equip your people, what you find is there's always going to be roadblocks, always going to be things that don't work, but people just don't get depressed and walk away from it that way. Having a really clear vision helps people become problem solvers, and you find your whole congregation working together to keep you on the path towards that vision that they want.
If
Okay.
if a good vision, certainly a good strategic plan, is something that is measurable, so that you will know when you get there. If you don't
Sure.
have that, just a lot of vagueness is not helpful at all to this type of work. We have to have some specificity about what we're looking for, and that means, how will you measure it? Part of it will be they're taking the CVA at the beginning and taking it toward the end, but there will be other things in between that need to be paid attention to.
Yeah. Butts in the pew and checks in the plate are, two of that, but
But there's more
yeah.
to vitality than that, right?
Yeah. And more to
It's-
sustainability than that. Yeah,
So-
exactly.
So that's been the
we've-
challenge for congregations for so long, telling the larger church, like, you have to ask us more questions on the parochial report, because this isn't just how we're measuring our ministry anymore.
Yeah, checks in the plate, butts in the pew. Will we have a consultant physically available to us, or is that because y'all are far away from us out here on the western fringes of civilization? And so I see you giggling over there. And so would we have I mean, this is terrific. You can all see each other in little squares. But would we have somebody physically on site? Is that a possibility, or is that?
It certainly is a possibility, that perhaps we may visit our diocese that we're assigned to, but we haven't laid that out in the plan.
Okay.
Right. But if it becomes, if we feel like it's necessary that we need to come in person, we all know that there are things that can happen in in-person conversations that don't happen on Zoom. We as FaithX just spent last week at the Episcopal Parish Network, and we everyone there was sort of marveling about the energetic conversations happening because we were in person and getting to meet partners that we've only been with on Zoom. We get that piece. Yeah. So we'll be paying attention to that need and addressing it if we need to.
What we're trying to do, though, is balance when we need to be there with your diocesan team, your diocesan leadership becoming the consultants that you really need. Mm-hmm. So what you may find, and this might be different for each congregation, but what you might find is that we might work with your diocesan team kind of in a lead role with the first congregation, and then go side by side with them in the next congregation, and then step back and let them get up on their own skis. So we're gonna, we'll be keeping our eye on that, and we'll see what's needed.
So Barbara was asking about how MapDash will be useful, small communities, but lots of churches. It's really a fascinating thing. For instance, I recently did some consulting in Utah, and everyone was amazed to learn that the number of people who were unaffiliated with a church of any kind was over 60%. And everyone said, no, this is Utah. Everyone's associated with the Mormon church, but we were able to show that no, this was really the case. And that means that there's potential in your community for growth. But if we don't dive into the details, we won't learn about that. So there's always something to learn. Just because it's a smaller community or there's lots of churches around doesn't mean there's not lots of good information for us to dig into. Sometimes it's lack of internet access that's relevant to the community, or it's poverty levels, or it's the lack of affordable housing, or good schools, accessible, or the high levels of people on disability. And so what's going on with that? Or a high crime rate, or low crime rate, but a high rape rate. Like there's just a lot for us to look into. So even when folks think, I know my community, you'll find out things that you didn't know about your community.
And one of the things that makes MapDash different from some of the other things is that it's not just demographics, but what we call analytics. These are algorithms that we've developed, based on research that can show us some things. And one of those things is the missional opportunity, that there are a number of factors that drive missional opportunity, and we can show you where it's cropping up. And so, like, for example, in Maryland, which is mine, which is the diocese that I'm going to be working with in this, a couple of years back, we were looking at 12 congregations that were in an area, within 15-minute drives of each other, and in the middle of them was where the missional opportunity was developing. And so what they found out was that there was a huge Latino community out there, which they sort of knew about, but they realized that if they had those 12 churches all trying to do Spanish language services, they just couldn't get the critical mass. And so it showed them that they needed to collaborate with each other and play to each of the congregation's strengths.
Barbara, you have been using the CVA for a while. Could you share for a moment kind of how that's been useful in your diocese?
Yes, certainly. I'm senior warden at my small congregation, ASA 25, 28, so kind of little, but we're very healthy, very vital. Every year it's our practice, after we elect or reform our bishops committee for the year, to spend about 6 to 8 hours over 2 sessions in strategic planning for the year. And we start that out usually almost always with using the congregational vitality assessment. Often then we will, when we take it to the membership, we will supplement with the spiritual gifts assessment, because we're also looking then, do we have the right person using their gifts in the right way in the congregation? And how does that fit with our vision and where we're going? So when we take it to the congregation, the congregational vitality assessment has asked rather broad questions. So it's when you go to the membership that it kind of breaks down. Not breaks down as in comes apart, breaks down as gets into manageable small bites. And that, doing measurable objectives on those things, that can be really fun because you can count checks and butts. But then how do you really tell that somebody is happy, that somebody is really feeling included? And so we come up with, sometimes kind of funny things to measure. How many coffee cups did we have to wash this week? So, it can be kind of a fun exercise too. And we've always been very impressed with how our membership has bought into the process and really how engaged. And I will double and triple down on what Ken said about always starting with discernment, centering prayer, putting that all first, because that does make a huge difference.
Thanks, Barbara. I appreciate you sharing your experience.
Yeah. Based on this discussion, I'm thinking there's a few additional examples of things that we can post on our website. So in the next few days and weeks, you'll see things like information about our assessment and strategy development process, and other things like that. So
Yeah, the other pieces, like on our website, under resources, you can click on congregational vitality assessment. There's FAQs there. There's all the sample questions. There's a sample report. So you can take a look and see what that looks like. The benefit for your diocese to have the judicatory platform for it is that then they can collect, they'll have the data to do analytics in your diocese. So like, well, what does it look like for congregations that are this particular size, that have a full-time clergy or don't have a full-time clergy? There's lots of ways to break down the data, and they'll get to see some of those pieces if you're taking it through the diocese.
and again, this tool and the report that we produce in Data Story will be available to all congregations. I mean, they will be tracking all the congregations and looking for, for similarities and differences between them, common threads in terms of the kinds of training they might need to provide, and so on. So we're focusing on you all, but this is going to be a boon to the entire diocese, both of the tools and the process we're bringing.
They have the use of it for the duration of the program, and yeah, can make good use of it for everybody. Well, we don't have anything else to present. We'll hang out here for about 5 more minutes. If you have any other questions, you can stay. We will have this recording available, so if you would like a copy of that, just jot us an email, info@faithx.net, and we'll be happy to send that out. We'll also send it to all the diocesan team leads so they can share it with interested parties. So we thank you for coming today. We hope we answered all your questions, and that we'll be seeing you as part of the VIP program.
And we know that if you're like us, you're going to have 5 questions that pop up 5 minutes after we end the call. So just as Mary said, please feel free to email us at that address and ask your questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. You're welcome. Appreciate y'all taking the time today.